And it should start
Rama
from
Mataji,
now.
do you know where we stopped last time?
Yes, it is
Or done with
the
Prabhuji?
uh, Mataji, can you hear me?
Prabhuji?
Can you
Oh, if
hear
you are
me?
speaking, maybe I'm not able to hear you. If you could text.
Hare Krishna Abhachan Prabhu, can you put the message in
We are
chat
not
box?
able to hear you.
Maybe
If you
she
could
can
put
hear.
it in a
She can
chat,
see chat.
just
Yeah.
the quick number, that would be useful.
Yeah, but I had a difficulty in sharing the screen. Mataji, it started from an hour past the Prabhupada worked on. That is the line.
Good. Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, great.
Oh, okay, Mataji, I'm putting in the chat. Just a moment.
So we stopped at chapter which starts with Swami invites the hippies in page number 554. So an hour passed and Prabhupada worked on. The building was dark except for Prabhupada's lamp and quiet except for the sound of his voice and the click and the hum of dictating machine. He wore a faded patch turtleneck jersey beneath his grey wool chadara. And since he had just risen from bed, his saffron dhoti was wrinkled. Without having washed his face or gone to the bathroom, he sat absorbed in his work. At least for these few rare hours, the street and the Radha Krishna temple were quiet. This situation with the night dark, the surroundings quiet, and him at his transcendental literary work was not much different from his early morning hours in his room at the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, India. There, of course, he had no dictating machine, but he had worked during the same hours and from the same text, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Once he had got distracted. Once he had begun a verse by verse translation with one commentary, and another time he had written essays on the text. Now, having just arrived in this corner of the world, so remote from the scene of Lord Chaitanya's pastime, he was beginning the first chapter of new English version of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He called it Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He was following what he had become a vital routine in his life, rising early and writing the Parampara message of Krishna consciousness. Putting aside all other considerations, disregarding present circumstances, he would merge into the timeless message of transcendental knowledge. This was his most important service to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. The thought of producing more books and distributing them widely inspired him to rise every night and translate. Prabhupada worked until dawn, then he stopped and prepared himself to go down to the temple for the morning meeting. Though some of the New York disciples had objected, Srila Prabhupada was still scheduled for the mantra rock dance at the Avalon ballroom. It was proper, they had said, for the devotees out in San Francisco to ask their spiritual master to go to such a place. It would mean amplified guitars, pounding drums, wild lights shows, and hundreds of drug hippies. How could his pure message be heard in such a place? But in San Francisco, Mukunda and others had been working on the mantra rock dance for months. It would draw thousands of young people, and the San Francisco Radha Krishna temple stood to make thousands of dollars. So, although among his New York disciples, Srila Prabhupada had expressed uncertainty, he now said nothing to deter the enthusiasm of his San Francisco's followers. Sam Spritzy, Mukunda's friend and one of the mantra rock organizers, explained the idea to Hayagriva, who had just arrived from New York. There's a whole new school of San Francisco's music opening up. The Grateful Dead have already cut their first record. Their offer to do this dance is a great publicity boost just when we need it. But Swamiji says that even Ravi Shankar is Maya. Hayagriva said, "Oh, it's all been arranged," Sam assured him. all the bands will be on stage, and Allen Ginsberg will introduce Swamiji to San Francisco. Swamiji will talk and then chant Hare Krishna, with the bands joining in. Then he leaves. There should be around 4,000 people there. So I'll stop there and we'll start with today's verse. So today's verse is from Canto 4, chapter 28, verse 62. And before we start, everybody can see the point. That's good. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Aham bhavam na chanyasvam Tvam evaham vichakshvaho Nano pashyati kavayas Chidram jatu managapi Aham bhavan chanyasvam Tvam evaham vichakshvavo Nano pasyanti kavaya Chidram jatu managapi Aham bhavam na chanyasvam Tvamevaham vichakshvabho Nano pasyanti kavaya Chidram jatu managapi. Would like to recite?
Aham bhavanna chanyasvam Tvamevaham
Aham bhavam na chanyasvam Tvamevam vachakshavo Nano pasyanti kavaya Chitram jatu manakapi. Prabhutis or Matajis would like to try? No pressure if you don't want to try. Mataji. Aham bhavam na chanyasvam Tvam evaham vichakshvabho Nano pasyanti kavayas Chidram jatu managapi. Aham bhavana chanyasvam Tvamevaham vichakshvabho Nano pasyanti kavaya Chidram jatu managapi. Aham bhavana chanyasvam Tvamevaham vichakshvabho. Nano pashyanti kavaya. Chedram jatu managapi. Translation and purpose by Srila Prabhupada. We'll do word to word. Aham, I, Bhavan, you, na, not, cha, also, anya, different, tvam, you, tvam, you, eva, certainly, aham, as I am, vichakshva, just observer, boha, my dear friend, na, not, now, of us, pashyanti, do observe, kavaya, learned scholars, chidram, faulty differentiation, jatu, at any time, manak is a small degree, api, even. The translation, my dear friend, I, the super soul, and you, the individual soul, are not different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually observed scholars, those who are actually advanced scholars, who are in knowledge, do not find any qualitative difference between you and me. Purport. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity are qualitatively one. There is no factual difference between the two. The Mayavadi philosophers are again and again defeated by the illusionary energy because they think that there is no separation between the super soul and the individual soul, or that there is no super soul. They are also misled in thinking that everything is the super soul. However, those who are Kavaya, learned scholars, actually knows the facts. They do not commit such mistakes. They know that God and the individual soul are one in quality, but the individual soul falls under the clutches of Maya, whereas the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, is the controller of Maya. Maya is the creation of the Supreme Lord, Maya Shrishta. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is the controller of Maya. Although one is quality with the Supreme Lord, the individual soul is under the control of Maya. Mayavadi philosophers cannot distinguish between the controller and the control. Om Ajnana Timandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी मामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर आदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, everyone. Wonderful verse, but of course, this philosophy, we know, we have been hearing about the soul and the super soul, quite common to people who read Bhagavad Gita or who have been listening to Bhagavatam. So what this verse is talking about is it's underlining the position of the soul. So Prabhupada is explaining, understand the position of the soul, but at the same time, don't disregard the position of the super soul, which Mayavadi does. So qualitatively, we are like, in quality, the soul and the super soul is one. But then Mayavadis who only take this part, they think that, oh, but that means there is no super soul. We can become God because in quality we are one. So if we advance, then even we can become super soul. But nobody can become super soul because the next part of the truth is that in quality we are one, but in quantity we are not one. So if we just take half truth, then half truth is more dangerous than the lies. So that's quite important because individual soul, even though in quality it is same, it is a minute position, minutely small in quantity, and whereas the super soul is the source of all. So here you see that it started with my dear friend. So super soul is the real friend of the living entity. And what is happening in this context is that the super soul is speaking to Puranjana, but in his next life. So Puranjana became a woman in his next life because when he was dying, he remembered his wife and children. So was very much attached, excessively attached to his wife. So in Bhagavad Gita, it says, whatever state you die in, that is the condition you will achieve. So he remembered his wife, so he got a body of a woman. So that means throughout the life, whatever our deepest attachment is, that's what we are making our future. So it's very important to understand that where we are going. So then in that story, what happens that King Puranjana gets a body of Vaidarbhi in the next life. And then she marries King Malyadwaja as her husband. So after, in Vedic time, there was a very nice custom of retiring for spiritual enlightenment at the end of the life, which we, of course, they used to go to forest, which we can't do at this time, not as soon as we become old, wife and husband goes to forest, but that's why we have Krishna consciousness to advance. But in this case, Malyadwaja and Vaidarbhi, they retire to the forest for their spiritual advancement. So important point to note here is that what is it representing, the story? So figuratively wise, Malyadwaja is representing the spiritual master and Vaidarbhi is representing the disciple. So when spiritual master wants to take or he retires for Nirjana Bhajana, then some of his advanced disciples also follows him. Why? To personally serve. So that's what Vaidarbhi was doing. To personally serve her husband, she also took retirement as the duty of a wife and as a duty of, and that helped her to advance as well. So we know about Malyadwaja. He went on, did extreme austerity, and then he perfected his life. And then one day he passed away. So he passed away, that means he got liberated at that stage. But Vaidarbhi, when she was cremating her husband, she was in deep pain because, of course, the pain of separation is a lot, especially from a spiritual master. It could be a lot. So in her case, it was in a similar emotions. So she didn't want to do anything. She was lost, that I have no directions So at that time, a Brahmana came to help her. And that Brahmana was the super soul. That was Krishna. But then, and Krishna says, I am your old intimate friend. But now question is that Krishna could have come in his own form. Why did he come in a Brahmana form? Any guesses? Any thoughts? He didn't appear or gave darshan in his own form. Why? Because Krishna gives darshan like only to a very elevated devotee who is in loving devotional service. But in the case of Vedavi, of course, she was elevated, but not at that level that Krishna can come in that form in front of her. But still, out of mercy, we get because she was serving a pure devotee. So she got the mercy that Krishna personally came to pacify her and help her out. So that is the importance of serving spiritual master and serving advanced devotee. So then when he came in Brahmana form, he explains that you are not this, who are you, Vedarvi? Why are you lamenting? This is not you. You are the spirit soul. You are not, your identity is not just Vedarvi. You are not just wife of Malyadwaja. Because in previous life, he was a man and he also had a wife. So if we remember all our past lives, then we will lament for so many things. But that doesn't mean we should not lament. Always devotees feel the separation of the bodily relationship that we have in this world. But at the same time, it is important to remember that we are the spirit soul. But of course, that's not easy. It's not easy to just say we are spirit soul and we will realize it. But it's good to have that understanding from scriptures. And then Krishna addressed himself that I am your most dearmost friend. Have we got any friend who would come to us even if we reject them, don't look at them, like, okay, I'll go and play, I'll have all the fun, and that friend is just sitting, waiting patiently for us? Have we got any friend who will say, no matter what you do, if you need help, I am there? A lot of time people may, out of a lot of affection, may do that for some time, but they will have a limit. They'll say, oh, okay, this person seems like an ungrateful friend. So I'll probably leave this friend, move on to somebody else. But Krishna is so merciful. He remains in our heart as super soul in the region of our heart. So he is always accompanying us. So, and he is never leaving us. So we should be grateful that Krishna is with us. And then the only difference is when Krishna was with the jiva in spiritual world, and when the jiva falls down and comes to the material nature, the only difference is there Krishna was not as an observer or a witness, but here as a super soul, Krishna is just observing and witnessing all our actions. And then he's waiting for us to turn towards him. The moment we turn towards him, then of course he's going to help us out. But if we don't need his help, he's still there waiting. But he will not help you until and unless we ask him for help. So it's like Prabhupada has mentioned 3 times that qualitatively we are one. That means the spiritual form, a spiritual part is same, but in quantity we are not one. So that is emphasizing it, but at the same time, he is explaining that quantitatively we are different. So as I mentioned already, that they miss this very important catch about that qualitatively part. So there is a philosophy, you all must have heard it, about Achinta Beda Abheda. So it is non-different. Both are spiritual qualitatively, but quantitatively one is minute and the Lord is absolute. So quantity is the only catch. It is like a drop of water and the ocean. You will call a drop of water a water. It has the same quality, and you'll call the ocean as water as well. I'm just comparing salty water, salty drop of ocean water as well in that case. But we won't call, even if the drop of water can't become the ocean. But of course, when it goes into the ocean, Mayavadi thinks that now it's all one. But individual souls still have its own individual identity. So that is the difference. So, and Prabhupada talked about the Maya and how Jiva. So there's another aspect to understand. Super soul can never be controlled by Maya at any stage. But living entity is always controlled by Maya when it comes in contact with the material nature. So living entity is Mayadheen and Lord is Mayadhish, the controller. So when living entities are subordinate to Maya, how we can say that there is no difference between the Lord and the super soul? There have been a conflict between Sankaracharya and Mayavad, Sankaracharya, Mayavad and Vaishnava philosophy. People were arguing about it, thinking, oh, actually the soul and super soul are one. And one is saying, no, the soul and super soul are two different things. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and he tried to harmonize with Achinta Beda Abheda Tattva. His first thing is try to understand Achinta. Don't argue about it, because what is Achintasya Lakshanam? What is the symptom of Achinta is that it is beyond our sense perception. Like the definition of Achinta is that it is beyond this material nature. We have so many defects. We get illusioned, even like by mirage. If we see the mirage and we can trust our eyes, but it is not the actual thing. So a lot of time we hear something and it may not be the correct. So we can't even trust our own senses. So how can we try to understand something that is inconceivable through our limited senses? So that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. Don't waste your time and energy in arguing about this. The only thing, because nobody can understand, then how one can understand? So we can only understand through scriptures, because scriptures are beyond these faults. So that is the authority, and the other authority is the person who is teaching these scriptures. So the bona fide guru. That's only the way we can get the understanding. We may not get the realization, but we'll get the understanding. And then after following the process, then the transcendental knowledge will be revealed in the heart. So we will come to know about it also one day. So there is no point in wasting time in speculating about this. So then what is Achinta Beda Abheda Tattva? So that is inconceivable oneness and difference of Supreme Personality of Godhead and his energy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that as part of God's energy, we are also equal in quality with God, but there is a vast difference in quantity. We are just tiny spark, and Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is infinite because he is source of all energy. So there is no point of arguing because the both statements are true. It is like somebody saying that Sam doesn't work during the day. And then somebody would say, oh, Sam doesn't go to work. But Sam works at night. So when you connect the both things, both is correct. That Sam is working, but Sam is working at night. So that's what he's trying to understand, that Bheda and Abheda, distinct and oneness, that one. So it is not, when we're trying to understand Bheda and Abheda, it is not like understanding just like soul, super soul in one category and Prakriti in one category. It's actually three. It is Jiva, Prakriti, and Ishvara. And Jiva, of course, as a minute nature. Prakriti is the material nature, which is formed when Jiva comes down to this material contact. And then it gets Maya Dheen under the modes of material nature. And of course, the Lord remains aloof from it because Maya is, or the Prakriti is external energy of the Lord. So what happens is the Lord just glances at it and the material creation happens, the material manifestation happens. And then when he removes his glance, the material manifestation becomes inactive. So that's how he is such at high level. So he is not in there, but Jiva is in it when it comes into the material contact. So that's the difference we need to understand, that they can never be one. One is Maya Dhin and one is Maya Dish. The biggest Maya is to understand I am this body. I am this body is like, says spiritual knowledge begins when we understand that I'm not this body. But it's very, very difficult. Like I was just imagining, I was just looking at myself in the mirror and I thought, suddenly if I just remember my past life and I forget my this life and I come to the mirror and then, oh, then who's this person? Because I will be used to seeing myself in the other body. So that's how tricky is that who we are. Like I don't have lots of realizations about this, but I remember a time like 2 years back, I had some chemical medicine reaction, and overnight my body changed. I got swollen, my face got swollen, everything had chapped skin, so I looked like a burnt person. And when I walked out of the hospital bed and went to the bathroom, to the washroom, and saw the mirror, I got a shock of my life. Who is this person? So I could not recognize my own self. So my identity is with this body so much. And when I called my son, we had a video calls because I hadn't spoken to him. He could not recognize me. The person who would not even sleep without me, little boy, he can't recognize me. Why? He is identifying me with the way I look. So nobody is looking at our spirit, soul, our inner self. It's all bodily relationship that we are into. So it's quite important to at least try and understand that we are the spirit soul. In the case of Vedarbi, that's what the Lord is coming and telling her, that you are the spirit soul. You are not Vedarbi. You are not the daughter of Vidarbha. You are not the wife of Malyadwaja. You are not the husband of Puranjani in your past life. You are the spirit soul. Understand your real identity with me, or your real relationship with me. It's like the example of so real identity as the spirit soul. It's like understanding the spark and the fire. So we'll say fire and spark, and same thing as what I gave the example of ocean and a drop of water. So the spark, one spark you take out of a wood, that would be same as fire. The quality wise, it's same. But then when it goes away from it, ultimately it will die and will turn into ashes. Then we can't say that it is the same thing because now it's in matter part. So how we can bring it back? The only thing is to connect it back to the fire. So how we can find our real identity is getting our connection back to Krishna. Then only we can realize that we are spirit soul. And otherwise, we will just keep thinking, and it is very difficult to come out of our current state, that who we are, or to understand our real identity. We will be covered with all these false identities. And Krishna is waiting. As I said, he's so merciful. He's just waiting. Whenever you come to me, I am there to help you out. Isn't that very consoling? That, yeah, somebody is there, but it's us. It is on us to turn to him. A lot of time people say, if you tell them that, oh, there is a festival or there is a program, would you like to come? So Krishna is calling them through so many ways. But people will say, oh, if Krishna wants, I will come. So Krishna doesn't want. If you want, then Krishna, you will get connected to Krishna. It is not Krishna wants robot that, okay, now I want you to come to temple, I want you to come to this program. It is the person's free will that they choose to come to a particular program and take advantage of connecting to Krishna. So he is very eager, actually, he is more eager. Prabhupada says in this context that if we take one step, Krishna takes thousands and millions of steps towards us just to pick us up and take him back, take us back. That's how eager Krishna is. But we have to show some eagerness. Otherwise, even if he'll pick it up, it will be like kidnapping a child. And, oh, I don't want to be here. And we don't want to embarrass Krishna like that. So there are lots, and that is the reason why he came to Devi as well. He came to help her out. And why he came, he's saying that I was just waiting for this moment. So now you are in so much despair, you are in so much like pain of separation that you have finally turned towards me. So now I'm ready to offer my hand or help to you because you have turned towards me. And how we can turn towards Krishna is there are many processes like Ashtanga Yoga and Jnana Yoga and lot of processes. But the easiest way is the Bhakti Yoga, which is the Krishna consciousness. And the easiest part is to surrender in whatever state we are in. Even anybody, like regardless of what designation they have in society, what body they have got, as long as it's just a matter of consciousness, that as long as they just surrender to Krishna, they will perfect the life. But that surrender part is so hard. So it is just how when we think that we want to surrender, that's how we can come to that understanding. But can we come to that understanding just by ourselves? Can we just say, yeah, I want to surrender and I want to just understand this soul as super soul, just with all my intellect, all my understanding? Can we do that? Possibly not, because we need mercy. We need mercy to understand that. And first thing is that mercy comes from Guru. That mercy and the knowledge comes from Guru, because we have lots of different Siksha Gurus and Diksha Guru. But one form of the Guru Tattva is giving you the knowledge. So that's how we get connected. And second part we need is unflinching faith after that. Then one can realize this knowledge. So only by mercy of Guru and Krishna, we can do that. But through our own intellect, we can't surrender. But of course, through our sincerity and our attitude, we can surrender. So there is a very important verse I would like to share. So in the purport, Prabhupada wrote from a verse that is from Mukunda Upanishad. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanation, by vast intelligence, or even by much hearing. He is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. So Krishna chooses, but who he chooses, of course, the person who surrenders on. And then in the next, another verse, it says, my Lord, if one is favored, even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know, even though they continue to study Vedas for many years. So just by studying, we can't understand. We can understand through association of devotees, through mercy of advanced devotee. It's in one of the purports, Prabhupada has mentioned that Lord Krishna is very eager to bestow his mercy upon the conditional living beings who are uselessly struggling with the illusionary energy, Maya. But the conditioned soul struggles for happiness through sense gratification and for knowledge. So people who are not struggling for sense gratification, even for knowledge, they are stuck. That's how also they are stuck, basically. Through mental speculation. So knowledge through mental speculation, not knowledge to develop the bhakti. So both processes ultimately bring him to a morose and hopeless condition. So if the conditioned soul surrenders to the lotus feet of Krishna and thus acquires even a trace of his causeless mercy, the whole situation is changed. Then he can get the real bliss and the real knowledge. We see in the example of Malyadwaja that through the process of surrendering onto the Lord, he could see, he saw that in quality, the Lord and he was same. So he could see that, and also he could see the difference. So both part he could see. Even Vyasadeva, as an example, we could see. So there's another verse which gives two conditions of understanding this. It says, when the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires. And for that reason, he becomes subjected to designation. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. So from this verse, we get two conditions to see everything clearly. First is not interested in sense gratification. The second is interested in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. Then the person gets the real knowledge or the proper knowledge. So if we take the example of impersonalists, they also get a transcendental platform, but they cannot see the distinction. They cannot see the difference between soul and super soul. Why they cannot see the difference? Any thoughts? Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that's good point, because they don't want to understand. They don't understand. And the other part is because they have a desire attached to become one with the God. Because of that desire, they never come to the reality. So as we talked about, the desire should be no other desire other than just to have our desire in serving the desires of the Lord. So it's quite nice one in Bhagavad Gita's purport. It talks about the impersonalists, that Brahma Bhuta state, becoming one with the Absolute. But for the personalists, so impersonalists, their only goal is that they want to become one with the Absolute. But the personalist or pure devotee, they want to go a little bit far from that understanding. So they want to become engaged in pure devotional service. And this means one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Lord is already in the liberated state. It's already in Brahma Bhuta state, because the oneness with the absolute Lord, they have understand what is actual oneness. So that actual oneness is not becoming or merging into Lord, but that oneness is the oneness of the desires. So the oneness of our desire in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So when there is no difference between that, that is the perfection. So many times we read like the term oneness with God, but most of the time it is misunderstood by Mayavadis that all it means is just merge with the Lord, become one, and then forget your own identity as a spirit soul, which is the part and parcel. We are the servant of the Lord. Our real identity is that Lord is our master, and we are there to serve him. So Prabhupada mentioned one more thing in this context, that let me explain how Vaishnava practice oneness with Krishna. So in the material world, the activities of mind are acceptance and rejection. So as long as mind is in material consciousness, it must be forcibly trained to accept meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when one is actually elevated to loving Supreme Lord, the mind is automatically absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. So in such a position, one has no other thought than to serve the Lord. So that is the process he is explaining here, that first we have to train our mind. We have to chant. Even our mind doesn't want to chant, we should train our mind to chant. That this is my time. This is my time to do some spiritual practices to understand my real identity. And then slowly, when we keep practicing, then it doesn't becomes like a task. It actually becomes as part of us. And then slowly, our desires will also match with Lord's desires. So then we can dovetail the desires of Lord and with our mind. Best example is from Bhagavad Gita of Arjuna. Initially, he didn't want to fight, and Lord is saying, fight, do this dharma yudh. So then what did he do to get the oneness of the mind? He spoke Bhagavad Gita. So that's how, when he got the knowledge, he understood and then became the oneness of the mind. Then he performed, he fought to fulfill the desire of Lord. So under his instruction, he did it. But we should not speculate that, oh, this is Lord's desire, and what I'm thinking is I'm doing as per the Lord's desire. We can't manufacture or think that, like from our own side, that this is Lord's desire. But the process given is that there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita, yat karoshi yad asnasi, yad juhosi dadasi, yat tapasyasi konteya, tat kurushva mad arpanam. So it says that, O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. That is the starting process. So once we start doing that, then our real spiritual life will begin. So if we start doing whatever we do is for our advancement in Krishna consciousness, then that will take us towards that oneness. And also we need to take guidance from our spiritual master to understand that oneness and how to practice this spiritual life. So we can't create our own oneness from our own thought process. That's all I have for today. Thank you everyone for listening. And if anybody have any comments, corrections, questions. Yes.
How can our mind and knowledge body just so much of our speech is defined body? Like I'm look up body, why, how to apply the knowledge back to body?
Yeah. So that's why we practice. So if we just understand that we are spirit soul, doesn't mean we neglect all our bodily duties. So we have two duties. Because we have got this body, we have our bodily duties as well. So as like for me, as a mother, I have a duty. As a wife, I have some duties. So I can't neglect that, but I can do that in Krishna consciousness. So I can train my child to be in Krishna consciousness. I can serve my husband for as a duty or as a service to Krishna. So that's the thought process. Possibly, I mean, I would do something like that. So just to dovetail everything in Krishna consciousness and keep that higher purpose rather than more of our personal desire, because personal desires are always there, but more and more we get purified. Like whatever we eat, if we eating is bodily activity, soul doesn't need to eat, but we need to eat. So if we offer, then that becomes spiritualized, and then we are doing the duty of the soul, because then we are offering to Krishna, we are connecting to Krishna. When we are chanting, we are trying to connect to Krishna. So all these activities will help us realize that we are the spirit soul. But of course, that realization doesn't come like that. So we have to practice and wait for the mercy. Does that answer? Okay. Any other questions or comments? So I'll end here. Thank you everyone for listening.
Ananglata Mataji ki jai.
Thank you, Guruji, for all your
Hare
help.
Krishna. No, no.